First saw you like 5 years ago was at a local strongman contest. So
Yeah.
how many people are competing?
We have 11 teams of 5 people, so 55 people competing this year.
Okay, so that's a huge local show.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited because I always hope, like when I go to a contest, that other people just watching want to try, because that was my whole thing. Was I saw you, I saw other people, and I was like, I think I could do that. So it's always my goal when I'm at a contest was try and convince other people in the audience to do it. So
yeah, I think that's a big thing. That's actually how I started as well. The year before I ever competed, I went and watched the TPS show in 2007, I think it was. And that was before I ever thought about competing. I said, why don't I go and watch a show, see what it entails, and kind of go from there. And I fell in love with it. I told Angel at that time, I said, I definitely want to do this. So I just started. A few months later, I went to TPS at the time and hired someone to teach me the implements, because I had never done, I'd strength trained in the past, I just never done strongman specific stuff, and just kind of took off from there.
It's funny, I feel like everyone's story is pretty much the same, but did you, when I watched it, I was sitting there getting an adrenaline rush, were you getting an adrenaline rush for
for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's how I knew I was going to love it, just because I hadn't felt that way in so long about a sport. Some guys, you probably do too, watch football, and they're all obsessed with it, and I don't really get it. But for strongman, it's that way for me. I know everything, I know exactly what they're doing, I just want to know more, and then just get my hands on it. So
yeah, it's interesting. I also found myself kind of paying attention to the strategy some people would imply, right? Kind of doing just enough to be able to win an event.
Yeah.
Right. So if it was a stack class and you knew you kind of had to save your energy for an event maybe you weren't as good at, maybe the one you could have really shown off in, you just kind of did just enough to win. I noticed that a few times. I noticed how there are a few people who just really struggled with a lot, right? And just kind of showed how challenging the sport is. It wasn't just a matter of anybody can do it, anybody can just sign up and do it, right? People who actually train a lot can still zero an event, or only maybe move the farmers 3 feet of a 50-foot course or 100-foot course. So that was something that also appealed a lot to me, is that it took a lot just to even get to a point where you could you can compete on the local level and just complete a full show, right? It wasn't just hey, anybody can just walk up and do it.
Yeah. And it's interesting you said about strategies and technique, because one of my favorite things about watching novice in particular is you can, a novice versus a seasoned competitor, you can see a novice putting their entire body and heart into it, which as someone that's a little more seasoned might know that, okay, if I win this, I can kind of back off a little bit here. So it's always fun for me. I love just watching the novice, because you can really see who has grit, I guess. Sure. So it's always fun.
There's a ton of passion, right? It almost, in a weird way, watching the novices sometimes kind of as a more of a veteran, it kind of reignites that flame, and you're damn, I can remember that feeling of just wanting to just go ham on everything, right?
I feel even just talking about it, I feel I get goosebumps, because I'm such a sap, but I'll literally sit there watching people, and I'm just oh my god, I get an adrenaline rush, and I just get so excited for them. I just want to, you can see what, you can really see who is gonna be awesome in the sport.
Yeah, so, that's definitely something I'm excited to see on Saturday. It's kind of see, there's a lot of novices mixed in, there's a lot of veterans mixed in, there's masters, right? There's some pros that are competing up a weight class. So it'll be kind of fun to kind of see that mix. You don't really see a ton of that at a lot of local contests. Sometimes there's a lot of novices and maybe 1 or 2 people that have done a handful of contests, but this will be a really good mix of people, so I'm really excited.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm on the other side, I'm helping out with this contest instead of doing it, which it's so funny. I'm sure you feel the same way, because I feel I had a big contest this summer, and I was kind of I'm going to take a break for a while, and then just reading into these events and helping people get ready for it, and I kind of wish I was doing it. But I'll have to live vicariously with the people competing. So.
Yeah, it will be interesting. It is interesting for sure. Being on the other side of a contest. Yeah. I don't know. I find myself. I think it's a lot harder, candidly, to run a contest, right? Especially for me, because I really like to make sure everything on the competition floor is going smoothly, so I'm in the muck of it, of making sure all that is done really smoothly. Just as an active athlete still, that stuff I think goes a long way, right? Yeah. So it's always frustrating. You have a contest that drags on a lot longer than it needs to, right? And you're well, why don't we just go? Or why isn't why don't they have the proper equipment, or just little things like the right collars, right? So then the farmer starts exploding every time somebody drops it, right? Little things like that. So I look at it from the athlete's perspective while running the show, right? And I think sometimes that people lose sight of that when they're actually running a contest. They think about it more from the promoter side of thing, not from the athlete's perspective.
It's interesting you say that, because we haven't sat down and talked for a while, but when I was at Nationals a few weeks ago, I was trying to film people from like an athlete's perspective.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I left that contest, like when I compete, you know, like your back hurts and you're stressed out, but it was awesome. Like I really thrive off that type of stress, but I loved it because I was trying to make sure I knew everything, but there was like 150 people I had never met before. Sure. So I was just trying to tell the audience like what was going through each athlete's head, and you know, talk about like different techniques, like, oh, that person was doing a windmill technique with a dumbbell and like different stuff. So it's funny because I definitely agree with you. Like from judging, I've never promoted a contest like you are, but just judging and like being involved, it's much harder.
Yeah, I think it's harder than people realize, right?
Yes.
It's definitely much harder than you realize, right? Like as an athlete, you have to basically get ready for 5 or up to like 8 or 9 60-minute or 60-second bursts, rather, right? When you're running a show, right? Like for me, like I'll get there probably at 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and I won't leave until whatever it's done, and I'm literally moving the entire time, right? Like if I have time to maybe stop and get a Gatorade or something like that, like it's nonstop stress.
That's why I said earlier when we first walked in, it's like I feel like the common person most people have had a wedding or planned a wedding, and they can relate. They say that's so stressful, and I'm like, yeah, imagine like doing that like a couple times a year.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I'm excited for it, so it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it's funny because it doesn't seem to get it. While in some ways it gets easier, and the other times it's still the same thing.
We want to get better and better every time.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's always
details.
I always take little notes on like here's some little things I could do better the next time I run a contest. Right.
I think that's why you're a good athlete too.
So yeah. You had mentioned before doing. I always forget these names. Strongest Woman in the World?
Yeah,
is that
I know.
what it was called? Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was World's Strongest. It's Strongest Woman in the World you did, right?
Yeah,
in Norway.
Yeah. So
tell me a little more about that.
So that was probably the best experience of my life, not from an athletic standpoint, just from having the opportunity to go overseas. I'd never left the country before. And my mom, Jake, my boyfriend, came with me. My youngest brother, Mikey, and his girlfriend, Sarah, came. So it was just, I'm an anxious person anyways, but I was not even anxious to compete. I was just anxious to go like overseas with my family, and it was just, I don't know, I feel like I get emotional talking about it because it was just such a big opportunity. So we went there, and never in my life, like I started strongman 5 years ago, and just to think that I was able to travel and leave the country because of it is pretty amazing. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the sport, is because like I was just a regular person, and the fact that I was able to go to Norway to compete is just something that I feel like if anyone loves the sport, like the potential really is there. So that's just something I really try and like talk to people. So it was awesome. I placed 3rd, which, as an athlete I wasn't happy about, but I just try to take in everything that happened as a whole. And, I know you can relate, like there's always room for improvements. Even if I had come in first, I probably would have walked away saying like, I wish I had done this better or did this. But at the end of the day, like I know when I'm like 90 years old, I'll look back at it and I'll be able to, hopefully tell my future kids or grandkids like, this is what I did. How cool was that? So.
I think that's probably, for me personally, that's the biggest part of being able to reach the level of a professional status and be able to go and travel overseas is opening up that world, right? Like I wouldn't have been able to travel to the countries I was able to, or like going to Norway and stuff like that, just to be able to compete. Like it's opened up a whole, literally a whole world to me that I would have never gotten without the sport, right?
Exactly.
Like more than money or more than whatever it is, being famous online or whatever, like just literally, being able to travel the world because of the sport, and like it's opened up that door. I think it's pretty awesome. It sounds like you kind of had that same experience.
Yeah. I mean, this is even a good time to bring this up, is like, and it's even surreal for me to talk about it. I'm still like nervous when I say it, it becomes real, but I'm in the process of quitting my job, which is like days away, and it's because like I literally thank strongman because of it, and all the people I've met that impact you. It's like, how some people in the corporate world have like mentors or bosses. It's like coaches, which, you were my coach for so long, still are a mentor to me. It's like you take a piece from everyone you meet, and it's like, it doesn't, when you say online famous, it's like so weird to me because sometimes I hate the internet. But it's like, it's cool because it lets me talk about strongman and like teach people how to do strongman. So it's like I have to be thankful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that that's not a positive thing. It's just for me, like that. For me, the biggest part of it was, like I said, being able to travel the world and kind of have all those experiences.
Absolutely. Because you left the country how many times?
8 or 10.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's been pretty awesome.
And I feel like it's addicting, like competing. Like once you leave the country once, like I was itching. Like I just want to know where it is next year so I can like I feel like I was talking about this the other day. Like that's gonna be the highlight. How I look back at the years now is gonna be like, what country did I go to compete what year? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you'll have those memories forever.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, talk a little more about the contest specifically, right? So you had some really great highlights, right? You did really well in the Hercules hold.
Yes.
Kind of
so
talk
the
us through
events,
the
so all the
contest
events
a little bit.
were on night one. We had a Hercules hold, which was, I think the funnest part of about that contest is for strongman, competing in all local shows in the U.S. It's always the same implements. It's like a farmer's, a frame, or a Hercules hold might just be, not. It's hard, but it might not be as cool looking. These were like two giant pillars that looked like something from Game of Thrones. Is all I could think of the whole time I was there. So the way it looked, it was definitely the heaviest show ever. Like I felt like I'd gotten into a car accident. Like after I competed, I didn't want to do anything for like a month. And usually I'm good to go in like a week. I felt truthfully like I had been run over by a bus. And then spit back out. So the Hercules hold was really heavy. I forget how much they said it was per hand. There was no real way to measure it. But it was heavy. It was like, people think Hercules, they think just grip. I felt like, I had never braced so hard in my life. So one girl pulled her hamstring on the Hercules hold. I definitely have more of a different stance than everyone. I'd practiced a few different ways. Which I did it a little bit wider, which worked out well for me because again, even though it's grip, yes, I feel like a lot of it was just like full body bracing and then just mentally just prolonging, like holding on to something. So that was fun. And then on day 2, we had a truck pull, stones, and a yoke. And the yoke, again, was just like the Hercules hold in the sense that it looked completely different than anything I'd ever seen
awkward,
before.
right?
Super awkward. But I feel like this contest, and I feel like it let me explain to people better, like when they're prepping for their own contest, it's like you can prep and be strong, but just kind of going into something with more of an open mind because you're going to have to change. And it was really cool to be around other pro athletes and like hear them strategizing for how they were going to do stuff. I actually was really proud of myself because I feel like I was one of the more calm ones, and I'm not a calm person. So just being able to like, and actually I think coaching so much has helped me kind of like take my own advice and just embrace it. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to change my technique too much because I don't want to hurt myself. I mean, it's like a 550-pound yoke. So I just kind of, we had one run to practice, and I practiced exactly like how I was going to do it, and it worked out well for me. I didn't make any mistakes. I mean, it was a little bit slower than usual because I couldn't put my head and chest all the way up because it was crushing.
Because it had that, it was basically like, for the people that don't know, it was basically a huge log, right? Set horizontally across your back.
It was a huge log. I would say it was about 12 inches in diameter. Maybe even a little larger. And it was on, unlike a yoke where you can kind of comfortably like sit it up high in your traps and like lock it in. It was just sitting like at the base of your neck. So you kind of felt that spinal compression. Like I felt like I had instant sciatica. Like I could feel the pain all the way down. So I was like, okay, this is gonna be fun. I have to go fast or this pain is gonna like cripple me. So but yeah, that was definitely one of the cooler events. And then the last day we had a Viking press, which again was really cool because it was on wooden logs. And then we had the power stairs, which were 18-inch stairs, I believe, which was really high for females. And it was just heavy, which it should have been. You know, strongest in the world. I mean, everything was heavy. So it was awesome.
I think that's a big, that's one of the biggest appeals of strongman, right? Like more than powerlifting, Olympic lifting, or just being able to go into any normal gym and lift with the barbell or dumbbells. It's the visual appeal, right? The aesthetic, right? Like you could put the equivalent amount of weight on a yoke as you would 2 refrigerators on the side, right? But people are like, oh my God, it's 2 refrigerators, and they're running with it on their backs, right? Or you could put it in plate weight. They're like, is that impressive? I don't know, right? So I think that's one of the fun things about the sport. So when you get a chance to go and compete on those pieces of equipment, right, where people can see, oh my God, like when you're doing the Hercules hold, you're like, oh my God, that's such an amazing setup, right? Like I can't even imagine how heavy those timbers were, people, right? Like versus if you just had like some plates, you're like, oh, maybe I could do that, right?
Well, it's so funny you say that too, because I feel like, you know, I have a lot of friends that don't even know how much a barbell weighs or anything. They're like, oh, cool, that's awesome, you do that. Like, and then when they saw the footage from Norway, they were like, wow, now I get it. Like it gave them, like you said, a refrigerator versus weight. It gives them, because you know people can move a refrigerator in their house and realize how heavy it is. Never mind, like if you're carrying it. So it was cool to like actually put I guess, like numbers behind someone that doesn't know how much something weighs. So that I agree with you for that.
Yeah. In that contest, were there any events that you felt like you struggled with a little more, or things that you wish you could have maybe had back? Like maybe a mistake. You're like, damn it, you know what? I wish I would have done this differently. Because at least for myself, I come out of every single contest and I have a list of like, even if I've done well on it, an event, I'm like, this is the way I can improve for next time. Or maybe I'll bomb one and be like, here's all the things I need to go back to the drawing board on and improve upon.
I think earlier too, when you said you were getting, after you finished like putting on a contest, you write down what you can do better. I think it's the same way with competing. I always do that. It's one of the very first things I do. Otherwise, like it will just hang in my head.
Yeah.
It's almost like, people go to therapy to tell their problems.
Sure.
Like if I don't write down what I did wrong, like it will like haunt me.
Yeah.
So I write it down right away. And definitely for me, there was on day 2 a truck pull.
Okay.
When I watched the video, I kind of feel like that was the only time I really got nervous in the contest. I started off almost too excited. Like usually I don't like to give myself an adrenaline rush now that I'm more of a seasoned competitor. I just try and stay calm, then it will come to me when I'm doing it. I got really excited for the truck pull and just like my hands were shaking and I messed up on some of my technique stuff that kind of cost me a little bit. And I got back into it. I was able to get third on that, but that was something that I felt like from how I was practicing and how heavy I went, with doing practice, like I should have been able to place a little bit higher. But again, I moved on, like I know what to do next time. There was that, and then there was the everything else I feel like really went really well except for the last event, which was the power stairs. And it's like still even hard to talk about it because it was one of those things like I didn't have an adrenaline rush. Like I was so confident going in. Like I love the pressure because I was in first and me and the other girls were so close, but I've always been a mover. My back was feeling good. I'm like, this is my event. Like this is my chance to actually win a contest. Like I'm gonna do it. So I went into it really calm. Me and Leifa, who were like neck and neck. There was 3 power stairs. And they went progressively from, I forget how much they weighed, but
it was heavy, right?
It was all heavy.
It finished with like, was it over 400 pounds?
Yeah,
in the last one?
it was over.
Yeah, that's a heavy.
Over
over 18-inch steps. That's a heavy.
Yeah, so I think the first one, I want to say the first one because they lowered the weight, was only 285.
Okay.
Which wasn't bad at all, and then the middle one was like 350, and then so it was a large jump to like 4, whatever it was. So it was larger jumps, but the first 2 went up fine. I was like ahead of Leifa, and then the third one, I braced myself because I knew it was going to be heavy, and you have the same, every athlete knows what a lower back injury feels like, and it just went, and there was literally like, I don't care if you gave me $10 million, like nothing in my power was going to make that stair move. And it was horrible because I think there was 10 of us and only 2 people didn't finish. And I was one of the only ones that didn't finish, even though my splits were so like faster than anyone's in the first 2. Again, it doesn't matter. I think that's what's so cool about strongman is like, I'm not gonna like feel sorry for myself because it like stuff happens. It's a contest. But luckily I was still points. I was so much ahead that instead of dropping down to like last, I was able to hold on to third. But it just goes to show you, and that's again, it's a huge moment because it's like that right there. It's like anything can happen. It doesn't matter if you're killing it in first for every event. Like if you make one tiny mistake or something happens, like it can cost you the whole show. Yeah, you really can't in a tight class, right? Like at the pro level, you can't the margin of error is so small. Right? Like so small. So even if you have to perform at your very, very best on every single thing, and that might still not be enough. Right? But even if it isn't, right? Like you're like, all right, I perform my best on all these events, but you have a slight slip up here. And that'll cost you, right? Like where do you, on the amateur side or the novice side, you can really get away with a lot of those things from time to time. You're like, I had a bad performance on this, but I'll make up for it by winning every other event. When you get up to that pro level, that margin of error is so small, a tenth of a second, a 1 rep, right, on a deadlift, all that makes all the difference in the world. That's why I feel like I'm addicted to competing, but that's why I'll always compete because there's always going to be someone that, especially at the level I'm at now, that's going to challenge you. Like I wouldn't love this if it wasn't hard. Like if I could easily win, I wouldn't do it. So,
if you could basically walk in with like little to no training and then just win. And
I wouldn't do that.
Where's the joy in that? Right?
Exactly. So like that's the fun. It's like and you become friends with people you compete with, even though even though it's like want to beat them. It's like I think everyone has like a mutual respect because they know how much work it took to get there.
Yeah, for sure.
Both men and women, obviously.
Yeah,
Sport.
Anybody in the sport, right? Anybody in the sport that shows up, like they know the work that's required to get to that level.
Yeah.
Right. I think that was when I had just done America's Strongest Man. Alicia was there, Zach, Nick Camby, and then it just felt like a big party for people that we have known for. I've known some of those guys for 10 plus years.
Exactly.
Right. So just competing against them, it just felt like. I don't know, for lack of a better term, like, we're all in the same fraternity, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've all done all this stuff to get to this point, right? Like, you kind of know all the steps to get to that point, right? And nobody gets by that point by accident or by faking it or whatever, right? So there is that mutual respect to know what it is to get to that point.
Yeah, it's funny you said fraternity because I kind of use the term like family reunion.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, with like families, like you might be dreading to go somewhere and you might not talk to them that much. But once you like hang out with them, you're like, all right, like I missed that aunt, even though she's a little crazy.
Yeah.
I have the same thing with
Uncle Steve's going to be there, but
I think it's,
yeah, right?
I feel like I can speak for almost everyone where they're like, oh yeah, that girl's like crazy, she does that. It's like, we all, just like anything in life, like everyone has their own unique individual personality, and I feel like when you're competing, like the good and the bad comes out, and you really get to know someone, even if you're only competing with them for 3 days. It's like you see all faces of them, so I think that's one of the cool things. Is like there's some of my best friends, even though they might live across on the other side of the world, or I only see them twice a year. It's like I know them.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, that's a really fun aspect of the sport as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's kind of what you did in the last few months. Do you have anything coming up like throughout the rest of either 2018 or looking forward to 2019? Are there some things coming up on your calendar that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, definitely. So once I had that experience of going to Norway, I really I always have loved strongman, but it really just solidified it for me. And I kind of told myself, like, I am going to do this forever. But I kind of limited myself. It's so hard, like as you said, like you don't just go to a contest and hope you win it. You have to prepare for it, like especially at that level. You want to bring the best package you possibly can. But in the preparation for that, I think that some aspects of your life, you have to say no to things like working more, or you really have to prioritize strongman training, because it's not like I think every sport's different, but for us, like hands-on events is key. Yeah. And setting up events, the warming up for them, like a workout honestly takes more like 2 to 3 hours. It's not like you're in and out of the gym. Yeah. That's a lot of time. So I think just doing like one show right now for me at the stage of my life that I'm in, then I'm trying to concentrate more on other things. Yeah. That's where I am, but I'll definitely do Strongest Swimmer in the World next year, which they said it's going to be towards the end of summer. Yeah. They won't announce what country it is until next year. Okay. So, but I was planning on doing, I guess, one of the things you wanted to ask me too was like one of my weaker lifts. Yeah. One thing I've always struggled with, and it was very obvious at Strongest Swimmer in the World, when the deadlift motion. So I was thinking of challenging myself to do a powerlifting meet. Okay. Because it's squat, bench, deadlift. It's only three events, and the way I approach stuff, obviously I'm going to be intense. But I thought that the training at the point in my life would be easier not to do events, and still challenge me to really, really focus on deadlift, because it's one of the things I honestly like. I love doing it, but I also hate it. Sure. So if I like make myself strive to do it in a contest, I feel like I can really see where I'm capable. Yeah, take kind of more of an an off season, right, and build up your weaknesses. Yep. Right. So working on that will help you overall as a strongman competitor versus maybe doing something. Like doing more yoke runs or something where you're really, really good at, right? Yeah. Like that will help, and that's important to do when prepping for a specific contest. Yeah. But when it comes down to it, taking that extra time, because something like putting on a lot of weight on your deadlift isn't something where you're like, all right, I'm just going to work a few weeks, like 3 weeks on this, and it'll get better. Yeah. Like that's something that takes months and years to like really build up properly. And right? you knew me like 5 years ago when I was so new to lifting that like a 5-pound PR was happening all the time, and it was funny because you told me that wasn't always happen, and now it's funny because like I'm always teaching people like how to embrace that change, because I feel like you get to a certain level, and that's when people either fall off or they continue to still chip away and make that progress, because it does get harder, like much harder. Like you almost feel like you go backwards sometimes. Sure. So. Yeah, it definitely can feel like that, right? Because those PRs are coming once every year or once every 2, whatever that may be, right? However long that takes, versus like once every 4-week block, I'm hitting new numbers. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's how it's funny. I approach training so much different, because I used to just go by like yoke runs or like a strongman event or the squat, bench, and deadlift. But now, like in my training notes, like you know, if I can do something with better form, or if like I get one more pull up, or
Sure.
if I feel better,
Yeah.
my body doesn't hurt. Like I look at that like a win.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm healthy. I'm on a good track.
Yeah.
So
one thing I always like to ask people is, there's a lot of common truths in whatever sport you do or whatever endeavor you do, right? What's a common truth that you found to be the opposite for you, or maybe not necessarily exactly the same as what everybody else feels, right? And as an example, right, like everybody, you know, might say, all right, the best way to get your deadlift up is to deadlift every single week, right? But you found that actually taking more time off of the deadlift actually has helped you increase it. Are there any other examples? Are there any examples where you're like, everybody says do this? I've actually found the opposite to be true.
Yeah. So I feel like that's a broad question. There's so many different ways. I feel like there's so many things I can answer.
You can answer more than one too.
Yeah. One thing that people always say is, and I try and teach this to people too, is like, you have to get all your training in, or like you have to eat, or you have to be on a schedule. I'll talk about schedule because that's something that I've actually found to really help me be a better athlete, is embracing not being on such a schedule. Because when I was younger, I had like a 9 to 5, and I would lift from 6 to 8, and I would go to bed at the same time and eat all the same meals. And then I got a new job, which was a great opportunity, and I had my own business, so it kind of came to me. And you wrote about this once when you said you had kids and you might only sleep a couple hours a night.
Yeah.
And I've learned that other things do not have to be perfect, and you just have to honestly listen to your body. So if you maybe only slept 2 hours, you haven't ate, and you have a choice. You have a choice to either go take a nap and go get food, or you can maybe fit in 30 minutes of yoke practice.
Yeah.
Like, you have to make that choice. And so once I started kind of ignoring like what science says about sleep and stuff, which I know that it's bad, but it almost helped me as an athlete be more calm and be like, you know what, if I have this plan written down, I wanted to do these 3 events, but I can only do one, I'm going to pick which one I suck at the most. And I'm going to just do that. And that will be it for the day. And doing stuff like that has helped me. Again, I don't think I would have approached it like this in my first year of lifting. I think I would have gotten injured, but now that I'm older, and some people, it's funny because a lot of other people in the industry will like tell me like, oh, that's really stupid that you did squats and not deadlift. And I'm like, well, I didn't have time to warm up for deadlifts, but if I keep squatting, like it's gonna make my deadlift go up. Or if I do like a frame hold or something, like I like to kill 2 birds with 1 stone in my training.
Yeah, and I think that's smart too, because it's also knowing your own body. Right? Like going back to your example of choosing to squat over deadlift, and even if deadlift might be a weaker event for you, but if you also run the risk of tweaking your back deadlifting when you know you don't have enough time to properly warm up for it,
back to square one.
How is that over the course of the next several weeks going to get you stronger? It's not, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, building up your leg strength, building up your squat will definitely help more than walking around crippled for the next couple weeks.
Absolutely. And then I think another thing I wanted to talk about too, because I think other times people like look down at other sports. And I'll admit, I was the first one. Like I did strongman. I loved strength sports, and like I'm really excited to watch your interview with Christine because she's more in the bodybuilding world, and I think dating a bodybuilder opened up my eyes. To doing like more volume work and things like a leg press that I would like never do before. I'm like, okay, like I don't have to use my back as much if I do a leg press, but I'm still getting that, like, I'm still feeling it. I'm still feeling the weight, still learning how to create pressure all the time. So just being more open-minded about training, that there's really no right way to do things.
No, I think one of the bigger mistakes people make is they focus on the differences, not the similarities. Right, like focus on the similarities of what makes people in each one of those disciplines, each one of those sports successful. Don't focus on the difference. The differences are the sports themselves, right? But like, what does Brian or Thor or Donna Moore do? The same thing that like, I don't know who's like some of the top like CrossFit people are, but like, Rich Froning or some of the top people in different sports. What are they all doing similarly, right? Focus on those. Focus on those things. That's clearly what all those people are doing to be successful in different sports, right? Rather than saying like, well, this person does this and this person does that. Well, I want to be like this person. I team this person, right? Like,
I know. I think that's a
doesn't matter, right?
Argument to people like, oh, my sport's harder. I'm like, every sport is hard.
Every sport's challenging. Every sport is hard, right? Like, it's just choose what you want to do,
exactly.
right?
Choose what you want to do. It's going to be harder if you don't like it. So.
Yeah, exactly. So we talked a little bit about the maturation process of you as an athlete, right? And, so going back and talking to yourself in 2011, 2012?
Yeah, that's
right, around that time?
Yep.
What would you tell yourself then, or somebody getting into the sport brand new who walks through the door today? One or two nuggets of information of here are some things that I've learned that save yourself from learning these hard lessons. Learn from me. What are some of those things you'd maybe tell them?
There's two things I always say. It's just to jump into a contest, just to try it, because so many people are like, oh, maybe one day I'll do that, and it's like, if you don't just try it now, the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
And you're always going to think of something that's going to hold you back.
Sure.
It's just do that novice competition. Yes, you don't need maybe learn what you have to do. Maybe touch the event once or twice. Study some videos. I think that you can do a lot by just looking at videos and learning about the sport. But just jump into it sooner than later.
Yeah.
Put a cap on how long you're going to train for. Just do it.
Sure.
I would say that, and then another thing I would say is just to not really. I was so stressed out all the time about, like I said earlier in the interview, being perfect.
Sure.
I would read if I felt defeated, if a workout didn't go well, I would get really mad at myself, and I would do it over, which was which is the stupidest thing I have ever done in my life. I don't know how I don't want to talk badly about myself, but it's I don't know how I was that stupid. To do a workout, it's no, I can do it in 10 days, and my strength, I used to think my strength would just go away.
Sure.
Which is not true at all. It actually, the more I respected my body and the weight, the more it worked out to my favor. So.
Yeah. I think along those lines, I think that's a huge thing that a lot of people, and not even just novices, I think a lot more, even some veterans lose sight of is there's no one specific workout that's going to win or lose you a contest.
Yeah.
Right? We all have good days, we all have bad days, right? If you ask, let's say Thor just won World's Strongest Man this last year. If you asked him, what's the point to the one specific workout you did that won you that title?
No.
He wouldn't be able to, right? Nobody can, right? You win a contest and you're all right, I know on March 27th I did this squat workout and that's the reason why I won. No, the point is it's a collection of all these workouts, right? And having one bad day also doesn't mean you lost, right? You're all right, I had a bad training session in February and that's the reason why I lost in April, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because us being coaches too, we prep people for contests, and it's a lot of the work. My easier workouts are leading up to a contest.
Sure.
I'm tired from touching events and stuff, but I'm not doing so much, volume kills me.
Yeah.
But before a contest, it's if let's say I have yoke, I might just do yoke, and that is, I use the word fry a lot, but your CNS is shot from it. So I'm not gonna go do other stuff on top of that.
Yeah.
I guess. So even though my training sessions are longer because I'm so fixated on making sure my events are perfect and I'll study my videos, make sure my start is good. I am a huge detail-oriented person when it comes to doing events. So the workouts take me longer, but I'm working out for less time.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's another big thing, right? I think it depends on where the athlete is in their particular maturation, right? Whether the novice person, I'm going to want to have do all these other little things along with it. As somebody gets a little more seasoned, I'll have them not do as much stuff leading up to the contest, right? It's more important to just warm up, get in the one or two events you need to that day, and then shut it down, right? Be healthy, go through the practice, make sure you feel the load, right, and go through it that way. You're gonna get a lot more out of it. And like you said, the higher and higher you go, the heavier and heavier the weights are going to handle, which means you're not going to be able to recover from doing a super heavy yoke and super heavy stones and a heavy deadlift all in the same training session, and then try to also do some back work and some ab work and conditioning afterward, right? Whereas you could do that maybe your first year in training for the sport, because all the weights you're using are so much lighter, right? But as you get heavier, right, all the weights you're going to use now are gonna no pun intended, weigh you down a lot more, right?
And I think that's a really hard thing to explain to people sometimes, because people that are only been training for a year might look at our workouts and be like, wait, what? And I'm like, okay. I try to look at it from a fresh perspective, and I'm like, this stone, I don't want to say, people think oh, I could never do it. I'm like, no, you can't, you trust me, you can, because I look at that stone like that when I was just starting. This was 200 pounds over my max or something, but now it's still very heavy for me. So again, I'm not going to go do back work where someone else might not understand that. They kind of think more is better.
Yeah.
But when you're handling really heavy weights like that, you know, at some point it's inevitable. Like if you do that much, it will cost you. So.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like I said, I keep saying I think it depends on where you're at, right? Because I do think in the beginning sometimes more can be better.
Yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely.
Like I don't tell a beginner, oh yeah, just warm up and do like 2 runs of that and 1 run of that and 1 run, you know, and then all of a sudden 30 minutes later they're like, I didn't really train today.
Yeah.
Right. Like they do need more practice,
Absolutely.
more volume, right? And that's where like some of that the lower intensity, more practices, right? Like each time picking up the farmers, right, is a way to practice picking up how you're going to take your first step, how you're going to take your first 10 feet worth of steps, right? Like all those things are practice, right? But as you go down the road, right, like and you become more seasoned, you don't necessarily need to have 10 runs to know that. You just know, all right, like within a set or two, I can get into the pattern I need to get into.
Sometimes I miss those days. It was fun though when I got to do like 12 to 14 runs
sure.
or something. Like I think those are like precious. You know, like that's laying a foundation. So it's
absolutely.
really important to have years
Super
of that
important.
type of training.
Yeah, and it's funny because if you try to do that now, right? Like I'll do that every once in a while. I'll just kind of have to scratch that itch, and I'll do that, and then I'll wake up the next day and be like, "Why did I do so many sets of that?"
Yes,
right?
I feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's kind of switch gears a little bit to kind of some, not necessarily training related. Some of them may be. What's some music you like to listen to while you train? Do you like having headphones in? You just kind of go with the flow of whatever's on the speakers?
So I was completely against listening to music in a headphone until recently.
Sure.
It wasn't until I started going to different gyms. Like when I was, you know, just training at one gym, and I used to live in Boston, I would only come to Titan, I would never dream about putting music in because that would just ruin like the atmosphere and like the vibe I guess I was in. Like everyone was lifting. But now when I go to commercial gyms, it's like, you know, people judge you and like you hear stuff. So I just put my headphones in because it really, really helps me focus and just kind of like tune out everything. Like I'm not really aware of my surroundings, only what I'm doing. But for music, it totally depends on my mood. It can be everything from like to like rap, like really bad rap, and I'll listen to lyrics. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I'm listening to this. Wow. Or like country or like EDM. It just totally depends on my mood. Or even like metal sometimes if I'm lifting heavy, it's like completely mood driven for me if I'm in like a good mood or a bad mood. So
So a little bit off subject from that, talking about training in commercial gyms, right? Like one of the things that I hear a lot from women who come here, right, is just how frustrating it is to, as a strong woman, not only in the sport, but like as a woman who is strong, right? Like how frustrating that can be training in a commercial gym environment. Talk about. I mean, we don't have to go down this path if you don't want to, right?
I'm super.
But I think it's. I think the only reason why I bring it up, right, is I think sometimes some of the overwhelming things I've heard feedback wise from some women who, when they first walk in here, they're like, oh, I'm super intimidated by whatever it is. But then literally after 1 or 2 times in here, they're like, this is so much more inviting of an environment for one who likes to lift weights or likes to be strong than your commercial gym, right? Where they're constantly getting harassed or told, you know, they shouldn't go. So, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Why don't you take it from there? Why don't you tell me?
I'm really passionate about that subject because, you know, I've always heard things, and I was fortunate enough to always, for the beginning of my lifting career, only have like 1 or 2 gyms that I trained out of that were strength-related gyms. And then, you know, I made the decision to move, and I had to, you know, sometimes I don't always have the time to drive like an hour and a half to a gym I want to train at. So it's funny because it's really bad. Like you would be amazed. Like I tell people stories and like, did that really happen? And I'm like, yeah, isn't that crazy? Like I've never been I'm very hyper aware of my surroundings, and I actually get anxiety sometimes walking into different gyms, which is funny because other women that I coach or like that I hear about, they tell me that they're anxious to walk into a gym like this. And I really try and tell them like, you're not going to be judged. Like if someone, I don't want to swear, but if someone's, you know,
I don't care.
someone's an asshole, like in a gym like this, like there's going to be someone, and it usually isn't even the owner. It's because everyone else is in such a community that they'll stick up for that person. And I feel like commercial gyms are even more cliquey, and it's like, you know, sometimes like it can be, I mean, being strong and like being a professional strong woman, like it is something I do take pride in, and it gets very embarrassing at a commercial gym because I almost feel like I really don't want to squat that right now because I know people are going to look at me, and like I just wish I was in a box. Because it's you shouldn't apologize for your strength. And that's how I feel. That's exactly how I feel, and I hate that I feel like that. So that's why whenever I get the opportunity to train in a strength gym, like I'll go out of my way to train there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's I can definitely see how that's frustrating, right? Because I'll get that on a much smaller level, right?
Well, you look like you do.
Yeah, I mean, people don't necessarily judge me and like you shouldn't be doing that, right?
Yeah.
Like, people don't give me comments about like, oh, that's not the way somebody should look or what somebody should be doing, right?
Yeah.
But it is. I do obviously get a lot of the like staring, right? Because usually, like if I have to go train at a commercial gym, I'm usually like twice the size of most people in there, right? But at least that's not nearly as bad as like what a lot of like women have to go through, especially women who are strong, right? Have to deal with people staring or like making comments or trying to tell them like how they should lift when they're half as strong as the women they're trying to critique, right?
And it's so frustrating to me because I'm very outgoing, I'm not shy, and it's almost like changed my personality a little bit. So when other people, I really have a soft spot for like when women tell me their stories, and like I really try and help ease their anxiety about going to this type of gym, because I'm like, it's not going to be like that. Like no one's going to make fun of how you look, or like I mean, like, I hate talking about being called big, but like it happens to everyone. Like more in your, you'd be surprised. Like I've told you my own stories, but you'd really be surprised. Like I always joke I'm gonna carry around like a camera so people can hear the comments, because and I'm nice about it. But I'm just like whatever.
All right, back on the lighter note.
Sorry, I got kind of mad there.
No. And I wanted to bring it up because I think it is an important thing for people to talk about and hear about, right?
Yeah.
So if you could only pick one exercise to do for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Front squats.
Front squats,
yeah,
specifically.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yep. So that's the one. Oh, actually, there's like two, but I think front squats there is one of the first lifts I learned.
Yep.
And I love it. I feel like it generates power. It teaches you how to brace. Teaches you what pressure feels like. It hits every part of your body, like upper back, legs, obviously, core. I mean, there's no better core workout than like a heavy front squat. Yeah. And I just love them. So that's what I would do. Nice. I mean, I'd probably want to do pull-ups too, but if I had to choose, I guess front squat. Yeah.
Food, favorite meal, right? Favorite meal?
Yeah, my favorite meal is a grass-fed patty with sweet potato fries and an egg on top.
Okay.
Yep, no condiments, just that.
All right, that's your like last meal? Yep. That's what you're having?
Last meal, yep.
All right. If you could, I guess I probably already know the answer to this based on front squat, but like if you could only use one piece of equipment for the rest of your life, what would it be? A barbell. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's the way most people, right? If you had to narrow it down to one, because it is so multifunctional, right? You can do so many different things with the barbell. Right?
Oh, it's just hard though, because I could reverse that, and like I could say I could do front squats with like 2 heavy dumbbells, and I could do, so I'd probably actually 2 heavy dumbbells.
2 heavy dumbbells.
So I can do like floor presses and 2 heavy dumbbells.
Okay. Do you have like any favorite clothes or any like similar clothes that you like to compete in?
Yes.
So for example, I know it's sometimes a weird question, right? But I always wear the same pair of shorts for Atlas Stones. I have for the last decade, right? So like for me, that's the one thing that is constant. Beyond that, I don't really care about what I'm wearing. Do you have anything like that? And it's not even a superstition thing. It's just more of a those are my Atlas Stone shorts.
I definitely have. I have a few pair of pants So it's funny because when I train, I love to wear pants. But when I'm competing, like I think just skin, like chalk and tacky just on skin is helpful, because sometimes pants are slippery or you don't know what the weather's going to be like. So I normally, when I train, always wear pants. But when I compete, like I always wear shorts, because my skin will be like white from the amount of I bathe in chalk.
Sure.
I mean, it's more of like I know that much chalk doesn't even help, but it's more just like for me. Yeah. It like helps me feel better.
that little like comfort blanket, right? Like knowing you have that much chalk on.
Yeah. But I compete for stones. I mean, just because your clothes get so disgusting from the tacky, I always wear. I started this a couple years ago, but one of your shows last year, but I've worn it like 3 times from the show last year, the blue one.
Yep.
I wear that, and I wear, it's so frustrating because I wear American shorts, like they are the American flag, and for some reason announcers always think it's candy canes, and I'm like, no, they're American, like I'm from the US, but they don't get it, so, but I still wear them.
That's great.
Yeah, that's what I do.
All right, so last question I have for you. All right. Pick one place in the world you could train for 3 months, right? You don't have to pay for anything. I transport you there for 3 months.
Yep.
Pick one place in the world you'd love to be able to train.
Gold Coast, Australia.
Okay.
Because I know they have a million strongman friends. My best friend in the world that I met through the sport, Kia, lives there. and she will post videos. Right now she's injured, but she did this crazy thing where she did like a 2-mile yoke walk, like on the beach, and it seemed to be normal in Australia, which I know if I did that in my hometown on the beach, I would probably get the cops called on me, I feel like. So that's what I would do, 3 months in beautiful Australia.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Awesome. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. Do you want to tell anybody about kind of where you're training, some of your online stuff? Do you want to fill people in on that at all? Or where they can find you? I mean, if they're not familiar with you on social media or anything like that? Yeah,
so I guess, so I train myself out of here in Top Strength Project or just any commercial gym you can find me. But then I train, my specialty is kind of like introducing females in the sport that have wanted to try it but are kind of scared. I feel like that's kind of what I cater to, is just women that want to maybe start but don't know where to begin.
Sure. So. And is there a good way for people to contact you? Is it through social media? Is it through
Instagram.
Email? Or is it Instagram is the best way to do that?
I treat the DMs, I go through them once a week like email.
Okay.
So.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you.